I never thought my life would turn into something straight out of a soap opera, but here I am, sitting on my couch, staring at the wall, trying to piece together how everything fell apart. My name is Mike, and I'm here to share a story about betrayal, heartbreak, and a little bit of magic, though not the kind you'd want to see on stage. This is about my wife Emily and her affair with a magician. Yes, you heard that right. A magician. We'd been married for 8 years. At first, everything seemed perfect. Emily was this vibrant, ambitious woman who lit up every room she walked into. We met in college, and it felt like destiny when I saw her performing at an open mic night. I was drawn to her energy and her passion. Over the years, however, I began to notice changes. Small things at first, like her late nights at work or sudden bursts of irritation over minor issues. Then there were the texts. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. I mean, who doesn't have their phone glued to their hands these days? But Emily was always so secretive with hers. She'd turn off notifications, and if I ever caught a glimpse of her screen, she'd quickly flip it away. That should have been my first red flag. One Saturday morning, I decided to clean up the house while she was out grocery shopping. As I was dusting the shelves in our living room, I noticed a small envelope sticking out from underneath the couch. Curious, I pulled it out. It was addressed to Emily with no return address. I hesitated for a moment, but my instincts kicked in. I opened it. Inside, I found a ticket to a magic show with a note that read, "Can't wait to see you again. I promise this time the show will be unforgettable." My heart sank. I had heard about the local magician, a guy named the Great Orange, who had recently gained some popularity for his extravagant performances. Suddenly, everything clicked. The late nights, the secretive behavior, the way she'd light up when she mentioned the show. Fueled by a mix of anger and betrayal, I decided to do some digging. I watched Emily that evening, waiting for her to leave. When she told me she was going out with friends, I knew she wasn't being honest. I followed her. What I saw that night shattered me. I watched from a distance as she entered a dimly lit theater packed with people. My heart raced as I approached the entrance, slipping past the ticket booth unnoticed. I took a seat near the back, my heart hammering in my chest. When the magician took the stage, my eyes darted around, scanning the audience. And then I saw her. Emily was front and center, laughing and clapping as the great Oronzo performed. But it was more than that. She was hanging on his every word, every gesture. I felt sick to my stomach as the act progressed. It was clear she was enamored with him. When Oronzo pulled her up on stage for a trick, I felt like I was going to explode. I wanted to scream, to drag her away from that ridiculous show and confront her right then and there. But I swallowed my anger and waited for the show to end. After the final bow, I followed the crowd out, keeping a safe distance. Emily didn't notice me. She was too busy giggling with Oronzo, and the way they interacted was like nothing I had ever seen between us. He leaned in closer than necessary, their bodies almost brushing. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just an innocent crush. This was a full-blown affair. I had to confront her. There was no way I could let this slide. But how do you approach your wife about something like this? I couldn't just walk in and say, "Hey, I followed you and saw you enjoying the charms of a magician." So I waited until she got home, my heart racing and my mind swirling with anger and hurt. She walked in, her face lighting up as if she hadn't just spent the evening cozying up to another man. I stood there, arms crossed, ready to unravel her web of lies. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. She looked at me, confusion etched on her face. "What's wrong? Just tell me who's Oronzo." And just like that, the mask slipped. The surprise morphed into denial, and I braced myself for the performance of a lifetime. She shook her head, that familiar bitchy edge creeping into her tone. "What the hell are you talking about, Mike? You're being ridiculous." I held up the magic show ticket, watching as her face turned pale. "I found this. Don't lie to me. I saw you with him. You were practically in his lap." Her reaction was a mix of anger and irritation, a defensive mechanism kicking in. "You're just jealous. You're always so insecure. Can't I have any fun without you making a scene?" Fun. That's what she called it. The confrontation only escalated from there. Emily insisted it was nothing, a harmless fling. She claimed she was just enjoying the show, that I was being paranoid. But her excuses only fueled my anger further. I had loved this woman, trusted her with my life. And now she was spinning tailies as if I were the one in the wrong, pushing me to the edge of sanity. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Each denial cut deeper. I was losing her, and the reality of that hurt more than anything else. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook. I had a plan forming in my mind, one that would be my ultimate act of revenge. As the night wore on and Emily continued to twist and turn her lies, I knew I had to take action. I was done being the fool. It was time to make her disappear from my life, just like the magician would do with his assistant. Little did I know, my plan would be more intricate than anything I could have imagined. Let me know when you're ready for the next part. After the explosive confrontation with Emily, I was left in a whirlwind of emotions. I felt betrayed, angry, and utterly lost. It was hard to believe that the woman I had shared my life with for so many years could so easily shatter my trust. My mind was racing, plotting how to turn the tables on her and show her that I wouldn't just sit back and take this betrayal. The first step was to gather evidence. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. I started following Emily more closely, trying to piece together her lies. I tracked her phone, and after a few days, I discovered she had been texting Oronzo constantly. They shared inside jokes, flirty messages, and even plans for late-night meetups. Each notification I read felt like another stab to my heart, but I kept my composure. I knew I had to play it cool. If she found out I was onto her, she would only become more careful. So I put on a facade, pretending everything was fine. I went to work as usual, acted like a devoted husband, and even made small talk about her day. I smiled when I needed to and offered support when she complained about work. But inside, I was boiling. The more I gathered evidence, the clearer it became that this was more than just a fling. Emily had fallen for this magician, and it was time for me to make a move. I devised a plan that I thought would perfectly mirror the magician's tricks, a disappearing act of my own. To execute this, I started researching. I read everything I could about magic and illusions. I even watched several documentaries on famous magicians. You'd be surprised at how many tricks involve misdirection, sleight of hand, and illusion. I wanted to turn Emily's betrayal around on her and make her feel the pain she had caused me. The more I learned, the more I planned. I decided on the perfect night, a weekend show where the great Oronzo would perform. I accidentally mentioned it to Emily, feigning excitement about the magic acts and how I thought it would be fun to go together. She lit up at the idea, thinking I had suddenly become supportive of her hobby. In the days leading up to the show, I set everything in motion. I bought a ticket for myself and waited for Emily to purchase hers. I made sure my friends were in on the plan. I told them all about the situation and how I intended to pull off my own magic trick. They were all supportive and offered to help in any way they could. On the night of the show, the atmosphere was electric. The theater was packed, and as I sat in my seat, I felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. I watched Emily as she chatted with her friends, oblivious to my presence and my true intentions. Oronzo's performance was mesmerizing, with tricks that left the audience gasping in awe. As planned, I blended in with the crowd, waiting for the right moment. I had arranged for my friend Dave to create a diversion during Oronzo's big finale. He was going to create a scene near the front of the theater, something that would draw the audience's attention away from the stage briefly. When the moment arrived, chaos erupted. Dave shouted out something ridiculous, causing everyone to turn their heads in confusion. It was my cue. I slipped out of my seat and made my way to the backstage area, where I knew Emily would be after the show. Once backstage, I pushed through the chaos, adrenaline pumping. My heart raced as I made my way toward the dressing area. I knocked on the door, and when Oronzo swung it open, he looked shocked to see me. "Who are you?" he asked, clearly taken aback. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Where's Emily?" I demanded. Before he could respond, I caught sight of her through the window, laughing and chatting with the other performers, unaware of what was about to happen. I could feel the anger boiling inside me as I stormed past Oronzo, who tried to stop me, but I was determined. I reached Emily just as she was about to enter a small room with Oronzo. "Emily," I called out, my voice echoing in the narrow hallway. She turned, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone defensive. "I'm here to make you disappear," I said, a smirk creeping onto my face. I pulled out my phone and started filming her reaction, her face contorted with anger and confusion. "Mike, what the hell? You can't just barge in here." "Oh, I can," I replied, refusing to back down. "You think this is just a game? You've made your choice, and now it's time for you to face the consequences." Her eyes darted from me to Oronzo and back again. "This isn't what you think. It's just a bit of fun, Mike. You're being ridiculous." I leaned in closer, my voice low but firm. "No, Emily, fun is one thing, cheating is another, and you've crossed that line. You treated our marriage like a magic trick, and now it's time for your act to end." She opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. "I'm done being your fool. You wanted to play with illusions, so let's see how you handle the truth." At that moment she turned to Oronzo, grabbing his arm for support. "You need to get rid of him," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't know what he's talking about." But I wasn't going anywhere. I turned the camera toward her, capturing every moment of her breakdown. "This is your reality, Emily. You chose to betray me, and now you're going to have to watch how it feels to be exposed. You think you can just wave a magic wand and make this all disappear? It doesn't work like that." The scene was surreal. The magician likely thought he was the one pulling the strings, but in that moment I was the one in control. Emily's facade was crumbling, and I could see the panic in her eyes. As I watched the woman I had loved for so long slowly unravel, I realized this was the climax I needed to expose her lies. I felt empowered, like a magician myself, using her own tricks against her. But I wasn't finished yet. I had more planned for her, and I was ready to pull off the ultimate disappearing act. Let me know when you're ready for the next part. As I stood there, filming Emily's frantic expressions, a mixture of satisfaction and vindication washed over me. The look on her face was priceless, the betrayal evident in her eyes as she tried to grasp at any semblance of control over the situation. But it was too late. I had her right where I wanted her, and the reality of the entire situation was finally sinking in. "Mike, please," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "You're making a scene. This is uncalled for." I chuckled darkly, relishing the moment. "Uncalled for? You mean like how you've been unfaithful, how you've played me for a fool?" I leaned in closer, my voice low and steady. "You wanted to have your fun with the great Oronzo, and now you get to face the music." Oronzo stood there, stunned, clearly not knowing how to react. His earlier bravado had vanished, replaced with an awkward tension that hung heavy in the air. I could see the gears turning in his head as he tried to figure out how to salvage the situation. "Listen, man," he finally spoke up, trying to diffuse the tension. "I didn't know she was with someone. It's not like that. We were just what?" I snapped, turning my ire toward him. "Just flirting, just sharing a few laughs. You think it's okay to come in and sweep my wife off her feet with your magic tricks? You've got a lot of nerve." "Mike, stop," Emily shouted, her voice rising in panic. "You're embarrassing me. You're going to regret this." "Regret what exactly?" "Exposing you for the liar you are." I shot back, my anger boiling over. "You don't get to sit there and act like the victim. You've spent the last few months betraying my trust." I caught the gaze of a few employees and audience members who had drifted near, drawn by the commotion. It felt surreal to have an audience to this heart-wrenching drama. It was almost poetic in a twisted sense. The magician's assistant was now the one being revealed. "Let's go," I said, turning back to Emily and grabbing her arm. "I'm taking you home." She yanked her arm away, eyes blazing. "You can't just drag me around like this. I'm not your property." "No, you're my wife," I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "Or at least you were until you decided to throw it all away for some cheap thrill with a magician." I turned my back on Oronzo, who was watching the scene unfold with a mix of embarrassment and confusion. "You need to stay out of this," I said over my shoulder. "This is between me and her." I could feel the tension in the air as I marched Emily out of the theater, her protests echoing behind me. The audience had largely dispersed, but I could see a few lingering faces peering at us with curiosity. It felt like a spectacle, and I hated that I was giving them a show. After we got outside, I pushed her toward my car, a mix of anger and hurt coursing through me. Once we were in the car, she turned to me, her face flushed with rage. You have no idea how embarrassing that was. Do you think you can just come in and act like a jealous idiot? I'm not acting, Emily. I shot back, gripping the steering wheel tightly. I'm living in reality while you've been playing some twisted game. If you think I'm going to let you walk away from this without consequences, you're sorely mistaken. She crossed her arms and huffed, leaning back in her seat. You're overreacting. This is just a phase. I didn't want to hurt you, but you've been so distant lately. Distant. I laughed bitterly, the hurt of her words stinging more than I expected. You're the one who's been distant. You're the one who chose to sleep with someone else. I've been here trying to make this work, but you've been too busy chasing after your magician fantasy to notice. Her silence hung heavily between us as the reality of the situation settled in. I could see the wheels in her head turning, the realization that she had crossed a line. But instead of remorse, she seemed angrier. "This isn't over, Mike," she said, her voice low and threatening. "You think you can just ruin my life because you found out. You're going to regret this, I promise you." I turned to face her, my heart racing at her tone. "Regret what? Exposing your lies? I'd rather face the truth than live in your fantasy. You made your choice, Emily. Now live with it." The tension in the car was palpable, the air thick with resentment and pain. I drove in silence, my mind racing with thoughts of how to proceed. I knew I couldn't just forget what had happened. I wouldn't allow her to manipulate me any longer. When we finally pulled into our driveway, the weight of the moment settled over me. I turned off the engine and faced her. "I want you to think long and hard about what you've done. This isn't just something we can sweep under the rug. You've broken my trust, and it's going to take a lot more than empty apologies to fix this." She looked away, staring out of the window, clearly grappling with the reality of our situation. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but I wasn't going to let sympathy cloud my judgment. Not anymore. As we sat there in the car, an uncomfortable silence enveloped us. I felt like I was on the precipice of a new chapter in my life, one that could either lead to reconciliation or complete separation. "I need some space," I finally said, breaking the silence. "I can't do this right now. I need to figure out what I want." She opened her mouth to protest, but I held up my hand, silencing her. "Just give me some time to process everything. I'll be in the house, but you need to figure out what you want too." I got out of the car, leaving her there to stew in her thoughts. As I walked inside, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with the sadness of what lay ahead. I knew the coming days would be challenging. I had to decide whether to fight for my marriage or let it go. But one thing was for sure, I was done being the fool. "Let me know when you're ready for the next part." The night dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity. I paced around the house, feeling the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on me. I had spent the evening in a haze, replaying the confrontation over and over in my mind. The anger from earlier had faded into a dull ache, replaced by a sense of profound loss. I couldn't help but think about the life we had built together, the trips we took, the dreams we shared, the plans we made. It was hard to reconcile those memories with the reality of what Emily had done. I felt like I was watching the ghost of our relationship slip away, and it hurt more than I could express. I tried to distract myself with TV, but the shows blurred into a backdrop of noise. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through social media, half-heartedly liking pictures of friends and acquaintances, but even that felt empty. I eventually set my phone down, the silence of the house amplifying the turmoil in my mind. Around midnight, I finally decided to check on Emily. I knocked softly on the bedroom door. "Emily, can we talk?" There was no response. I opened the door cautiously to find her curled up on the bed, her face buried in the pillow. The sight of her like that stirred a mixture of sympathy and resentment within me. I stepped inside and sat on the edge of the bed. "Hey, I know this is hard, but we need to talk about what happened." She didn't move, her body tense beneath the covers. "I don't want to talk right now, Mike. Just leave me alone." I sighed, running my hand through my hair. "I can't do that. Ignoring this won't make it go away. We need to address what's happened if we're going to figure out where we go from here." After a long pause, she finally turned to face me, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "What do you want me to say? I messed up. I didn't think it would go this far." "I didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't think it would go this far," I echoed, incredulous. You were flirting with a guy for months, Emily. You were hiding it from me. How could you think that was acceptable? I don't know, she shouted, frustration boiling over. I was lonely, Mike. You were so wrapped up in work I felt abandoned. It just happened. I didn't plan for it. Lonely, I repeated, feeling the anger rise again. So you chose to go and sleep with someone else instead of talking to me. You thought that was the solution. She sat up, her hands trembling. What do you want from me? I know I made a mistake. I can't change it now. All I can do is apologize and hope you can forgive me. Forgive you, I said, incredulous. You think it's that easy. You can't just wave a magic wand and make this go away. It's not just about forgiveness, it's about trust, Emily, and you've shattered that trust. Her face crumpled as more tears fell. I'm so sorry, Mike. I don't know how to fix this. I love you, but I got caught up in something stupid. I never meant for it to go this far. I don't know if love is enough right now, I admitted, my voice softer. You crossed a line that I'm not sure I can come back from. I feel like I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm still the same person, she insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. I was looking for something that was missing in our relationship, and I thought I could find it somewhere else. By sleeping with a magician, I snapped, the sarcasm lacing my words. What did you think would happen? Did you really think I wouldn't find out? She looked down and I could see the shame washing over her. I don't know, I was foolish and thoughtless. I just wanted to feel wanted again. The conversation felt like a tug of war, each of us pulling in opposite directions. I wanted to see if there was a way to salvage our relationship, but the pain of her betrayal was still too fresh. We can't keep going like this, I said finally. I need space. We both do. I think it's best if we take some time apart to figure out what we really want. Time apart, she repeated, her voice wavering. You can't be serious. I don't want to lose you. Emily, I said, trying to keep my voice even, you've already lost part of me. Trust is hard to rebuild, and I can't even think about that right now. I need to process this without you around. Her face fell, and I saw the realization. Hit her, so that's it. You're just going to walk away. I'm not walking away, I'm just stepping back. I need to look after myself for a while. With that, I stood up and walked out of the room, leaving her there. I closed the door behind me, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. I didn't want to believe it was really over, but a part of me knew that things would never be the same again. For the next few days, I focused on creating distance. I threw myself into work, spending late nights at the office and avoiding my phone. Emily would text me occasionally, apologizing and begging for another chance, but I couldn't respond. I wasn't ready to hear her voice or her excuses. Then came the weekend, a time I would typically look forward to, but this time it loomed ahead like a dark cloud. I decided to go out for a drink with a few friends, hopping to distract myself from the mess that had become my life. As I sat at the bar, nursing a drink, I found myself reflecting on everything. My friends were supportive and I appreciated their concern, but I felt alone in my thoughts. The betrayal weighed heavily on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost not just my wife, but the entire future I had envisioned. But deep down, I knew I couldn't let this take me down completely. I was determined to rise from the ashes of this betrayal stronger than before. I began thinking about what my life could look like without Emily. I considered new paths, traveling, exploring interests I had neglected while in the marriage. I realized I needed to take control of my life again. I had been the one left in the dark, and now I was ready to step back into the light, ready to make my own magic. Let me know when you're ready for the next part. The days turned into weeks, and I found myself navigating a strange new reality. I was living alone in the house we once shared, and the silence was deafening. I had spent years building a life with Emily, and now it felt like I had been uprooted, thrown into an empty space where our shared memories echoed back at me. At first, I wallowed in my sorrow. I missed the intimacy we had, the laughter and the comfort of having someone by my side. But as time passed, I began to focus on myself. I took up jogging, something I hadn't done in years, just to clear my head and feel alive again. I joined a local gym and signed up for a few classes, trying to shake the lethargy that had crept in during our troubled times. With each passing day, I felt stronger. I started reconnecting with friends, going out more, and even exploring hobbies I had neglected. I picked up painting again, something I had loved in college but had set aside as life got busy. It was cathartic to express my feelings on canvas, to pour my heart out in colors and strokes. But the reality of Emily's betrayal still loomed large. I couldn't forget how she had chosen someone else over me, how she had treated our marriage like a game. I had made the decision to take time apart, but part of me wondered if could ever truly move on from this and leave the past behind. One evening, I decided to attend a local art exhibit. It was a chance to socialize and immerse myself in a positive environment. As I wandered through the gallery, admiring the creativity on display, I felt a flicker of joy. I chatted with fellow art enthusiasts and even exchanged numbers with a woman named Sarah, who shared my passion for painting. As the night wore on, I started to feel lighter. I realized that there was life beyond this heartbreak, and I didn't have to carry the weight of Emily's betrayal with me forever. But of course, things took a turn when I received a text from her one afternoon. "Can we talk? I miss you and I'm sorry. I want to fix things." My heart raced as I read her message. Part of me wanted to ignore it and continue moving on with my life, but another part of me was curious. Did she really understand the gravity of her actions? Did she truly want to make amends? I decided to give her a chance. I agreed to meet for coffee the following weekend, but I went in with my guard up. I needed to hear her out, but I was not prepared to jump back into things without clarity. When I walked into the cafe, I spotted her at a corner table, nervously playing with her hair. She looked different, more vulnerable, yet still beautiful in a way that tugged at my heartstrings. I approached her and she smiled tentatively, but I could see the tension in her posture. "Hey," I said, taking a seat across from her. "Hi," she replied, her voice softer than I remembered. "Thanks for meeting me." I nodded, unsure of how to begin. "What did you want to talk about?" Emily took a deep breath, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since everything happened. I've realized how much I took for granted, and I'm so sorry for what I did. I never meant to hurt you." I remained silent, letting her words hang in the air. "It's not just a mistake, Emily. You shattered my trust, and that's not something that can be easily fixed." "I know," she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "I've been going to therapy since we last spoke. I've been trying to understand why I did what I did, and I realize now how selfish I was." "Therapy?" I raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. "You never mentioned that before." "I didn't want to talk about it," she said, her voice quivering. "But I see now how my actions hurt you, and I'm committed to changing. I miss you, Mike. I love you. I want to fight for us again if you'll let me." Her sincerity struck a chord within me. I had wanted to hear this, to feel her remorse, but was it enough? I needed to know if she had truly changed or if this was just another performance, another trick to pull me back into her world. "Emily, I need time to process all of this," I said carefully. "You've hurt me in ways I can't easily forget. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight." "I understand," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I just want a chance to show you that I can be the partner you deserve." I looked into her eyes, searching for the truth behind her words. Could I really believe her this time? As much as I wanted to, I had to be cautious. "I'm not making any promises. I need to see that you mean what you're saying." "I will," she vowed, leaning forward. "I'll prove it to you. Just give me that chance." There was a part of me that still felt the pull of our shared history, the love that had once thrived between us. But I knew I couldn't just fall back into the same patterns. I had to protect myself while also being open to the possibility of reconciliation. "I'll think about it," I finally said, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "But it's going to take time. I'm not ready to jump back into anything yet." "Fine," she agreed, her expression a mix of relief and understanding. "I'll respect that. I just appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk." As we finished our coffee, I felt a flicker of hope intertwined with my caution. Maybe there was a path forward, but it would require effort from both of us. I was willing to consider the possibility of rebuilding, but I wouldn't allow myself to be naive again. Leaving the cafe, I felt light. I still had a long way to go before I could fully trust Emily again, but I was open to the journey ahead, whatever it might bring. Let me know when you're ready for the next part. In the weeks that followed our coffee meeting, I was cautious but found myself gradually softening. Emily began reaching out more frequently, and though I remained guarded, I could see genuine effort on her part. She was actively involved in her therapy, often sharing insights and reflections with me. It was a stark contrast to how things had been before, and I couldn't deny that I was starting to feel something again, a flicker of hope that perhaps we could rebuild. We started spending time together in small doses. Casual outings, dinner at our favorite restaurants, even painting together. It felt strange at first, like stepping into a familiar yet distant world. We were re-exploring the foundations of our relationship, and while the lingering feelings of betrayal were still there, I could see glimmers of the woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago. One evening, as we sat by the lake where we used to go for picnics, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The sun set in a cascade of colors mirroring the complexity of our journey. Emily looked up at me, her eyes shimmering with sincerity. "I really want to thank you for giving me this second chance," she said softly. "I know I hurt you and I'm working every day to show you that I can be better." I nodded, appreciating her efforts. "I'm still processing everything, Emily. It's not easy for me, but I can see you're trying and that means a lot." In that moment, I realized that we weren't just rebuilding our relationship, we were also rebuilding ourselves. We had both learned vital lessons about communication and vulnerability. Sure, we had a long way to go, but I felt a sense of resilience developing within us. As the weeks turned into months, I noticed a shift, not just in Emily but in myself too. I was no longer defined by the betrayal. I had reclaimed my life, and I was discovering new strengths I didn't know I had. I had learned to embrace my passions, to enjoy life outside of our relationship. But I also knew that taking Emily back wouldn't mean returning to our old ways. I needed to set boundaries. During one of our talks, I laid it all out. "I want to rebuild with you, but we have to establish trust again. I can't have you going out with friends or spending late nights without knowing who you're with. It's going to take time before I feel secure again." "I completely understand," she replied, her tone earnest. "I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can be trustworthy. You're my priority now, and I won't let you down again." The more we communicated, the more I began to believe her. I could see Emily genuinely committed to changing her behaviors, and I appreciated her willingness to listen to my concerns. The intimacy returned in small, delicate ways, shared laughter, gentle touches, and moments of understanding that reminded me of why I had fallen in love with her. Eventually, we decided to take a trip together, a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to reconnect without the weight of everyday life hanging over us. As we sat around a campfire that night, the flames crackling and the stars twinkling above, I felt a sense of calm settle within me. "Mike," she said, breaking the silence, "I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work. I don't want to lose you again." "I know," I replied, looking into her eyes. "I'm learning to trust again, but it's going to take time. I want to move forward together, but we have to be honest with each other moving forward." She nodded, and in that moment I felt a sense of unity between us. We were both willing to face the past and work towards a better future. As the days turned into weeks again, I started feeling lighter. I realized that healing was not a linear journey. It was filled with ups and downs, but I was determined to navigate it with Emily. I was learning to embrace the uncertainty, to allow myself to feel again, to hope without fear. In time, I came to understand something crucial. Emily's affair, while painful, had forced both of us to confront the truths we had been ignoring. It had pushed us to communicate more openly, to redefine our boundaries, and ultimately to grow as individuals. There were still moments of doubt, of lingering fear that she could betray me again. But every time those thoughts crept in, I reminded myself of how far we had come. We were both in this together, committed to making it work, armed with the lessons we had learned. Looking back at our journey, I realized that while the magician may have momentarily made her disappear from my life, the experience had also led me to discover parts of myself I hadn't known existed. I was no longer just Mike, the husband hurt by betrayal. I was Mike, the man who had faced heartbreak and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. As I sat there next to Emily, watching the embers fade in the fire, I felt a sense of hope wash over me. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time I felt ready to walk it, not just for her but for myself. And sometimes that's the most magical trick of all, finding your own strength amid the chaos. The end.